Hello, friends. I have with me today a wonderful person from Guwahati. And let me say in the very beginning that he happens to be one of my favorite personalities. He's a wonderful person as a human being. He's very wonderful. And he's here today on my show, Conversations. And in Conversations, we try to bring for you the best of the people, the best of the personalities, best of people, best of the humans to you, so that they can share what they have been doing all along. And today we have with us Mr. Anisul Hoque. He is a name to be reckoned with. He is a man that has been doing excessive and extensive work in branding, in advertisement, in all kinds of things. And we're going to hear it from him. So very warm welcome to you, Mr. Anisul Hoque.
Hi, Tina. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's wonderful. Great to be on your show and talking to you. And so kind of you have said so many lovely words to start with. I really love the way you said humans. I mean, I really loved it. Before anything else, you all are humans. Yeah, we're supposed to be good human beings. Yeah,
You
fantastic.
are a wonderful human being. So that is why
Thank you.
I love you. You're wonderful.
Absolutely. Same. I have the same opinion about it. Yeah, great.
Thank you, Anis. Thank you for coming. And my dear friends, before we move on to this very, very interesting show of ours, I would like to introduce Mr. Anisul Hoque. Mr. Anisul Hoque is a brand consultant. He is the founder and creative head of Resonance Brand Communications. That is his brand. And I'll tell you a little bit about Resonance Brand Communications. It is a Guwahati-based brand consulting and communications creative firm with clientele across government and private sectors. Mr. Anisul Hoque is an MA in English. Well, we have to have another show with you about that. We're going to have about poetry sessions, and we're going to have a lot of other discussions. He's a master's in English, and he is a PG diploma in mass communication. And so far, he has worked with 3 premier advertising agencies in Delhi from 1997 to 2002. He's launched Resonance in 2003 in Guwahati. And the other engagements that he is involved in, he's a guest faculty with universities and management, is delivering lectures on marketing, branding, advertising, brand promotions, PR, etc. And you must, my dear friends, listen to him. He's a fantastic speaker. So I'm so glad he's here today. He writes on business, marketing, brand advertising, communication, societal issues, and sports. And he's a member of various social and sports associations. Now, this I did not know. And he is a sports commentator. My dear friends, we have a very interesting person with us today, Mr. Anisul Hoque, who is a sports commentator. I will actually speak a quote that Anis it's his favorite quote. He says, "Advertising is truth, interestingly told." These are stories which are interestingly told, and I'm sure all of you will agree to that. And Anisa, the very first question is that I know for certain that you have had a very interesting life. We're not going to talk about that. You've had a fantastic life. I know about that. But today, the viewers watching you would like to know, what is your professional and entrepreneurial journey?
Yes, actually, as you said in the beginning when you were introducing me, that I did my master's in English, and I did it from Guwahati University here. And I'm proud to say that I did it from here, because I had a wonderful time, 2 years time in the university, and the kind of person that I was before that, the kind of person I turned out to be after finishing my master's in English was quite different. And it all happened because of the fact that I spent so much time with a lot of quality people here. And after that, locally among my peer groups, my classmates, most of them went for academics, the way it normally happens. With when you're doing masters in English or any other literature, mostly people go for academics, become lecturers and all. But I somehow did not want to go for academics, although I had a knack for, or I thought, I'd love to teach somewhere down the line in my life. I thought, let me keep it aside for a while and let me pursue something which is probably more closer to my heart, closer to my heart. So my father, in fact, at the time, he wanted me to join the civil services. I don't know what made him think that I can make it in the central civil services, but I thought, anyway, let me give it a shot, no problem. And I also wanted to go to Delhi. I don't know why. I wanted to do an MA in English, I didn't know why. I wanted to go to Delhi to pursue further study. I didn't know why. I was fortunate and I was happy that I could make these two cuts in life. So finally, I landed up in Delhi. Didn't know what exactly I'll be doing there. So, I'll just cut it short. I don't think people will be much interested to listen to all this story of mine, but I'll
Of
just
course,
cut it
we
short. I'll
have.
briefly say them.
Please go
I'll be
ahead.
there. Yeah, great. So what I did pursue my preparations for the Central Civil Service for a while. I did appear in the prelims also. I did pass out the prelim, but somehow I lost interest in between. I thought I probably won't make it. And somehow I thought I'm not cut out for it, and I wanted to go to more a creative sort of a field, media, marketing, advertising. I also had that in me. In fact, when I was doing my graduation, I did my first work as a copywriter. A friend of mine came to me. He said that I want to launch a brand of garments. So I named his garment brand and I got a logo designed and gave him a tagline. So that was my first work, and that actually triggered in me that probably I'd love to pursue a career like that, and I'd feel quite at home, in that kind of a creative field. So I did a course in Delhi, and it was a course in mass communications. I specialized in advertising and PR. And although I
Okay.
did journalism, but I specialized in advertising and PR. And finally, I fortunately I topped my batch, and so I landed up a job in Delhi in a small advertising agency. I joined as a copywriter. So I really enjoyed my job. How much I got in my first job was a 2,500 rupee per month. Uh,
Wow.
I mean, now it's great to share those stories. It feels good because at that time, I mean, I never bothered about how much I'm getting. I was so happy that I'm in an environment where I can probably, enjoy what I'm doing. So after spending around 2 years in that particular agency as a copywriter, then I shifted to another one that again was a Delhi base, but much bigger. And that was the time I started thinking in terms of probably somewhere down the line, I want to start something of my own. The entrepreneurial bug started kind of, getting inside me. And I thought, let me just groom myself towards that if I can, without telling anyone, not even my family members. And so I spent uh, 4 years more in Delhi with another agency. I shifted myself to brand management, client servicing. There is, handling clients. So I thought, let me have a feel of every other department so that, I have an idea how everything works in advertising. And finally, in 2001, 2002, yeah, in between I lost my father, and there were three sisters, my home. So I thought this is the time probably for me to go back if I have to start something. A lot of people say that you are doing good in advertising. Why don't you stay back? Probably you'll go far, getting a good salary, good company, everything. I said no. Probably my heart lies in with my family, to be with my family. And I thought, even if I want to start something in Delhi, I probably won't be able to because the huge competition. You can understand that. So I
Yes,
thought Guwahati
yes.
will be a sort of a place where I can go back and be in my own place, at more familiar. Confidence level will be probably higher because I'm just back from Delhi, and give something probably new to that market. Someone who spent some quality time in Delhi. So there I came back and started Resonance in 2003. Before that, I did some consulting work, and also I did a stint with Doordarshan as a sports commentator. I also had a Doordarshan, was a weekly program on Doordarshan on sports. And I also, you don't know that I also did some Hindi serials, those commission programs.
Okay.
Um, so people thought that I'm from Delhi, so I could speak, and I love to speak in Hindi, so I did that. So in between all those tidbit works, go between, I finally started this, and people said, "Why don't you get back to your own thing, which you probably do best and enjoy most?" I said, "Yes, why not?" And then started it in 2003. And in between, I did a 15-day course on entrepreneurship from Indian Institute of Entrepreneurship. And interestingly enough, immediately after finishing the 15-day course in IIE, they became our first client. I went to the director, and I always be indebted to Mr. Kamaruddin Ahmed K. Ahmed. He was the director at that time. So Ahmed sir, I a lot of regard for him, and I always be grateful to him. And he rested a lot of hope on me and trusted me, and said that you have to design our brochure. Can you do that? I said yes, why not? And I was a lone man ranger at that time. I'm the lone ranger. So as an entrepreneur, I had my resources, put together, and we designed that. It was good job done as far as the client was concerned. And that was the beginning. And so far, so good. We started with me, and then people started joining. The next guy who joined us he was a Delhi return guy. He was working with at the time HT, the number one advertising agency at the time. He came back. He was also from here. So we sort of connected in that way, Delhi return, Assam-based guys. And he was a brilliant guy. So we worked together for 4 or 5 years. Together we created a lot of works, satisfactory works. And so that's the story so far. I mean, business-wise, I'd say that we have not probably grown that big as we should have so far. But satisfaction-wise, work-wise, I think I really enjoyed my journey so far, my entrepreneurial journey. In between, have been associated with a lot of other things as well. So it's been so far so good.
Wow, that was quite a story, that's beautiful. In fact, I think that's what I was saying, you have such an interesting life, but you must be having a more interesting story related to
I have a
your
good life, yes.
story.
Thankfully, I have a good life, yes.
Yes,
Fantastic.
thankfully. Thank God for that. Thank
Absolutely.
God for that. And yes. So, you know what, Anis, as you were talking about Doordarshan, something came into my mind that, when I remember when Doordarshan came on in '84, and I was in school at that point of time, and I was in Shillong, and we didn't have so many ads. I remember we just used to have, I think the logo used to come on. We used to start watching television from then on, the logo and then Krishi Darshan and all those things. But they didn't have as much ads as what is happening right now. Now we all know why we need ads. But I want to hear it from you. What is so important about ads, and what is advertising all about?
Absolutely, sure. See, I'll give you a quote from, it's not a quote exactly, the great Greek philosopher Socrates, once he said, speak so that I can hear you. Speak so that I can see you. Sorry. He said, speak so that I can see you. So the line itself has got a sort of dichotomy, I mean, speak so that I can see you. This is one line I read long back, and I thought, how relevant it is in terms of advertising and communications. My understanding is that there is a reality called who you are, or a brand is what it is. Like, if I keep on thinking that I'm good in this or I'm this, this is one part of the story. But it probably doesn't make sure that a lot of people in the world, or in my world, will be exposed to that very idea or the very fact that I'm good at this, unless I make sure that they know about it. So what I have to do, I have to do something towards making them understanding and making them know that I'm good about it. So this is very important. So the other important aspect. So this is what advertising is. Advertising is always about, there is something which has got a lot of value, and then it can create a lot of value. So there has to be some takers, right? So you are like a brand, you are giving something, okay? And there has to be some set of takers who have to take it, consume it, and then there's a value is being created. So unless and until you communicate that whatever you have inside, whatever the brand has got to offer, to deliver, people are not going to accept it, not going to be motivated enough, not going to be driven enough to be interested and then go for it, right? So advertising has to be, now before that, I must tell you that a lot of people equate advertising with a lot of glossiness, a lot of lies many a times. People think that if you are advertising, so there must be something wrong. So you are kind of glossing things up and kind of, making it up and say all sorts of things so that, it's like calling someone to buy something, But this is not advertising. Good advertising is always about, as you said, it's my own quote, and I love to say that advertising is all about telling advertising is telling the truth, but you have to interestingly talk about it. Advertising is truth, interestingly told. So, but again, the next thing I'd like to tell you is that advertising cannot happen in isolation. A lot of clients, a lot of people, a lot of advertisers, supposed advertisers, or people who need to advertise, need to market, need to advertise, they, for a lot of them, advertising is many a times like an afterthought. They've got everything, the product and everything, so then now want to advertise. So we have to advertise. It can never happen like this. Advertising, let me tell you, we have to understand, is part of the overall marketing game plan. So, if you have, my marketing is not just about selling. I'm having to say these very fundamental basic things because we still, at least in this part of the country, my experience so far has been that we equate marketing with selling, salesmanship. You know, like if you're good in marketing, you say, no, actually it's not. Marketing, let me tell you, is about creating change, creating meaningful change. It can be for a very great idea, which might change the whole society, might change the whole world, the whole humanity, you know. That's also marketing. You need to have a wonderful idea. If the idea is big, then you have to mobilize it, mobilize resources. Then you have to get it closer to a lot of people, and they have to be convinced that it's a wonderful idea. Then things have to be in place. So marketing is all about creating that meaningful change. So if we talk in terms of products, business, products, services. So if you have a product, you need to market it. And one of the marketing mix things that constitute marketing is promotions and advertising is an important part of it. So today we'll talk about advertising. So advertising is that very important. So unless you talk about it, but you have to be telling the right things. You cannot tell lies to people. There is a saying in Ohomia, tenga am bozarot ebarot he biki koribo pare. There's a saying. So it's as simple as that. I mean, if your product is bad, no matter how good your advertising is, it's not going to last long. Well, consumer is very smart. They're even smarter today because of the barrage of information and the kind of data they have, right? So you have to be doubly sure that he was telling the truth, but you have to be, attracting people into listening to you first. As in, you are a great communicator yourself, so you can understand, you just can't hop into telling someone something out of nowhere. You have to prepare the other person first, create an atmosphere and then start telling, tabhi jaake dal galta hai, sort of, So otherwise it doesn't work like that. So advertising is like that. For every brand to create a niche for itself, to be, to create a market for itself, it needs to communicate. So that's what we call brand communication. And in brand communication, advertising plays a huge, huge part. And advertising today is not just about newspaper ads or hoardings or billboards or radio. It's about, there's something called digital. Probably we'll talk about later in detail. So it's an all-out effort from a brand, and a brand can be human being also. It doesn't necessarily have to be a company or a product or a service. It's an entity basically, which we call brand in marketing parlance. So even I have to, if I have to probably, promote myself, or you have to promote yourself, we need to do things in a very structured manner. So people start looking at us in a certain way. And that has to be curated from our end, right? So that's advertising. Advertising is today, a lot of people will be surprised in India, if I tell you, it's almost 75,000 crore industry. And believe it or not, advertising across the world started almost 300 years ago. The kind of formal advertising that we talked about, And, today there is a brand called Lifebuoy. You all know that. Lifebuoy soap,
Yes.
Tandurusti ki raksha karta hai Lifebuoy. When the TV started in 1982, when our part of the world, when we started watching television, I think this was one of the first ads, apart from Nirma and all, we used to see. Mazhar Khan used to be the brand ambassador at the time. He was the model. So, yeah, okay, let me tell you, this, the first ad of Unilever, the company which makes Lifebuoy Steel, they are the company who are owning the brand. It was almost 300 years ago. Can you believe it? The first newspaper ad that was printed almost 300 years ago in America. So advertising goes back that far, And gradually there's an evolution, So print came, outdoor came, television came, and a lot of things. So that's how advertising industry is all about. I mean, I can go on talking about advertising. There are many facets of it, many kinds of advertising. But to conclude this question of yours, why advertising is so important for product is that without advertising, people, if you want to sell a product, it's like winking a girl in the dark. You know what you are doing, but the girl doesn't know. So it's like that. So there has to be light. There has to be you have to be in the knowledge of the girl that you are doing this wooing. It's like wooing the consumer, and you have to be interesting enough and factual enough, and so that convincing enough and compelling enough in your communication, your messaging, so that people start accepting your messages and they feel like going for what you are actually desiring them to do.
Yes. So interesting, as you were saying about the winking in the dark, and now advertising has become so very important. I think for even for a small thing, even if I'm selling my handmade products, I would have to go onto a page and put up my stuff, advertise about it, tell people, please buy it because it's, handmade and all that stuff. So, related to this particular thing, I would like to ask you that is, advertisements creating unnecessary demands amongst the consumers, and is it hiking up the price? Even if we see a product and we say, wow, this is great, so we need to go buy it, even if it's, over the moon, the price is over the moon.
No, actually, it's not. I'll tell you how. Actually, most of us are in the belief that advertising hikes prices. In fact, a lot of direct selling companies, who sell directly, like Amway or Tupperware or Avon, about these brands. A lot of them, they used to say that we do not do advertising because that's how we save the money and pass it on to a consumer. But the actual story is much, much different. If your product is good and if you know your target audience, whom you are going to sell, if you tell them what it is that you are selling, how you're different than the competition, they're going to be convinced about it and they're going to buy it. When more and more people buy your product, you can sell your product less price. Okay, they're getting their value, but the price goes less because you're playing with the margin. How more and more people will buy? Only when they come to know about your product. Only a lot of people will go on talking about it. Only there'll be a huge word of mouth, which you call word of mouth. There'll be a lot of gaga, a lot of buzz around the product. So you have to do all this, not only advertising, you have to do PR, public relations, you have to do sales promotion, you have to do event, activation, a lot of things are needed. Whatever has to be done, keeping in mind your target audience, the consumer, the geography that you're operating in, your budget that you have. So you have to put your best foot forward very cost effectively. So, more and more people know about your product, more and more people are going to buy your product. So when you spend in advertising, so I never call it spending, I call it investing. So there is a difference between investing and spending. A lot of clients, they think that I'm going to spend in advertising, and that's where the whole problem starts. Once you consider it to be an investment, you know that it's going to give you a return in the long run. Then you think that, what's my ROI? What's my return on investment? Your return on investment in brand building is actually a very long-term thing. It doesn't happen overnight. So you keep on doing that, and tomorrow a time will come. A lot of people will be not only your consumer, but they're going to be your brand custodians. They're going to be even a brand fan of your brand. They're going to love your brand, and that's when you know that you have created a fantastic fan base. So advertising actually doesn't hike the price of a product. It in fact helps reduce the product when people are going to know about it and they're going to buy more and more, and that's how you can sell in less price. But condition is that your product has to be really good, and you have to, I won't say that you deliver as much as promise, but you have to over deliver and under promise. That's always a better thing to do, over deliver and under promise. That is the only way to do. But a lot of brands are not doing that, and that's how we see that prices are going up, quality has gone down. You cannot just take down your quality at the same time hiking your price. And even if you have to hike your price, you have to be transparent and honest enough to tell your consumer that this is the reason why we are having to hike the price. Consumer will like that, they start trusting you. So it's all about trusting, the transparency in your communication, like among human beings. It also works among brands also. It's just like that.
I think you've got across a very wonderful message saying that you need to be truthful, and when you're talking about having the good product and you're talking about good advertisement, I think it's always, the ethics plays a very good part.
Absolutely.
And when you're talking about this, you're talking about ethics, you're talking about being truthful to your products, to your advertisement. There's a particular thing which has been, very troubling me, over a couple of months. The ad is no longer there on television though. But I had seen this ad during this period. I mean, it has been there. I don't know if you've noticed it, but this is an ad about a product. I forgot exactly the brand and everything. Absolutely, and I don't think it needs a mention. But they have pulled it off. They have pulled it off the television now. But it's about this lady, the wife, she comes forward. She's got a little baby in her hand, in her arms, and she comes forward and she reprimands her husband. She says, the ad goes like this, and the husband is asking the neighbor, "What are you using?" And he says, "I'm using this brand." And the wife comes forward and she says that if you're not going to fix this particular leak or in the roof or something, I'm going to get very angry with you. And she slaps the man. She
Okay.
slaps the husband.
Okay.
And child the little child, I am more worried for the little child. Little child in the lady's arms is traumatized. She looks at the mother once, she looks at the father, and then she starts crying. So this has really troubled me, and I'm glad I didn't have to write about it. But then I think ethics plays a very big role when we are showing a relationship like this, where the wife or the mother is getting violent with the father or the husband. It plays a very big part on the mental health of the little child. I don't know what you say about this. What would you say about it?
Yeah, firstly, I haven't seen this particular ad. Honestly, I haven't seen that. I might have missed that. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Whatever the product was, whatever the category was that it was advertising, I think there are a few things were going really wrong. If it was the story that you beautifully explained was like this. First of all, I think, if they could have used humor instead of very straight-jacketed kind of a violence she slaps her husband like this, we talk about gender equality, and here is something which is really topsy-turvy. You are really completely, taking it upside down, So there are 2-3 really things which are really going wrong about this advertisement. So first of all is that uh, uh, the child, as you rightly said, is exposed to this very unnecessary and very violent kind of a thing at this very tender age, a very impressionable age. It is going to have a very negative impact on the child, number one. But more than that, probably if it's probably a toddler, might not be getting what exactly is happening. But more than that, when you're making a lampoon of the man, the husband, and if you try to, when you try to make someone a hero or a heroine, to be precise, you don't need to make someone a lampoon or a dud or a stupid or an idiot. You don't need to
Exactly.
do that. So that's what the ad has done, as far as whatever you say. That's the wrong thing to do. And when you see such kind of a communication, the audience sees such kind of a communication, you don't feel good about the brand. And there's the biggest harm which is done to the brand. Because here's a story which you build up, which people are not going to resonate, very easily. Not even resonating, then they're not going to like it. And this non-liking would have a very negative impact on the brand itself, a very negative rub-off on the brand itself. So I think, and from every point of view, it is a very wrong thing. I'm sure they have taken it off. I haven't seen the ad. But possibly my sense is that they could have possibly used humor instead of such blatantly, kind of executed storyline. They could have used probably humor, and whatever the product was, they would have done away with. Yeah.
They could have. In fact, the neighbor was humorous. The person who was asking, that part was
Right.
fine. But the little child, I was very worried about the little toddler.
Right. Absolutely.
It's at an incredible age, and then that little child has already got that in his hard disk, that little violent thing that the child might not be their own child, but then the child might have been gotten for the advertisement, as a model. But then again, I think it comes across very badly for other children who are growing up.
Absolutely.
In the same line,
in fact,
yes. Yeah. Sorry. You were saying something.
No, you go ahead. Yeah. In the same line, you were talking about something else, I believe, also.
Yes, in the same line, I saw another ad which is also being taken down. I in fact reported this on Twitter. I don't know who to report it, so I just gave this on Twitter, saying that this was an atta maker, and then they came up with
I know what you're talking about.
They said that your servant's hands might be infected with coronavirus, so please use this atta maker. And it was so classist, and I thought it was a very, classist kind of a thing, because here we are trying to say everyone's equal, and we are not going to be racist and classist and all that. And suddenly we come up with this ad, but they've taken it down, and then the brand is also, kind of, they have asked for, they said that they are sorry about it. So they've pulled it down. But then I tweeted about it and I said, this is terrible.
Very good. Wonderful. Yes, yes, I do know about it. And let's not, without uttering the brand name, we know what the brand was. In fact, they did the best thing to just take it off immediately because they realized they've done a wrong thing. This is, I'll touch another aspect in advertising, which is used a lot of times by a lot of brands called controversy. A lot of controversial ads do appear time to time, and a lot of times somehow it's done deliberately. But talking about this particular ad, when you're making a roti maker, and then showing that the maid servant, if she makes it dirty and whatever, obviously it's a classist ad, and it doesn't throw good light on the way you think the storyline is shown and the way you think the protagonist, the way you think about and take people. Even if it's true, a lot of people might in reality think that way, but when you are in public, the brand is in public, you're communicating like that, you are really, really not talking the right things if you're doing something like this. So obviously, nothing much to talk about this ad because obviously they realize they've done the wrong thing by saying that, because Corona can attack anyone. The biggest mistake that they have done is to show that Corona will happen to this kind of people, not me.
Yes.
Which in fact today, if it's happening that yesterday I posted something on FB and all. It's happening that a lot of people think that it won't happen to me. I mean to those people. But when they came to know that it happens to those big shots, very famous people, and some of my near dear ones, suddenly they get startled. Oh, it can happen to anyone. So these are actually did the mistake of portraying the whole thing as this. So that was the biggest error. And of course, they've put their foot in the mouth by doing this thing storyline. From here, I'd like to talk about a few things about the controversy in advertising. From time immemorial, a lot of brands used controversy in advertising. Like Tough Shoes, long back in the 90s, there was a brand called Tough Shoes. Milind Suman and Madhu Sapre. There was a shoot by Prahlad Kakkar. He did this, sorry, not Prahlad, there was another photographer, Atul Kasbekar, I believe. So there was one which really created a lot of uproar in the market the moment it was kind of, released in media. MR Coffee was one brand I remember when Malaika Arora and Arbaz Khan were the people they used. Many times, a lot of brands, they use that. Sometimes unknowingly they do it. They think it's okay to do that, and then they realize there's a backfire. And sometimes brands do it deliberately to get some mileage out of it. I mean, recently we know there is a kind of uproar and a lot of controversy going around a certain TV serial, and a lot of people were talking about it. Let's not name anything. But a lot of people think that, let me create some uproar and controversy around it, and it will be known like wildfire, and then let's leave it, and people will anyway watch it to find out what exactly was there, to know what exactly was there. But it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. It really backfires in the sense that the brand becomes a big sufferer, because brand is like part of society. Every brand is part of a society. The brands we love are like people whom we love and admire and respect. We want to be associated with those people. We want to be associated with those brands similarly. So, but if it is done like this and the brand realizes that you've done a mistake, and immediately it kind of concedes it and says that yes, acknowledges that you've done a mistake, fine, people tend to forget it. But if you show a lot of arrogance and say that no, you start teaching people that no, this is right, this is not, you don't know, I know, this sort of attitude, then I think it's not good. So controversy, if it is done tactically, strategically, a very clever kind of a strategy and an idea in place, it might work. But I think for a society like ours, where it's very sensitive, our society, we are very sensitive about a lot of things. You should be very, very careful in sending out messages. It's not like Europe. If you see a lot of advertisements in Europe, for example, there are among the 9 rasas, there is one in Bhatsa rasa. Like in advertising, a lot of all these appeals are used, like humor, love, fear, all this. There is one called this like disgust, Bhats.
Okay.
So if you see a lot of advertisement in Europe and probably in America also, they use a lot of disgusting images and imageries in advertising.
Yes.
But a society like that, their sensibilities, it's okay to do that. They'll probably, but here if you do like that, people won't even look at the whole message, look at the whole ad. So the whole the money that you spend in it just go haywire, right? So you have to be very, very careful. You have to understand the society we're working in and the kind of target audience basically you are actually communicating to. That's how you should work.
Okay, nice. So Anis, in ads, I've seen that there are a lot of women being used unnecessarily. There are many a time in ads, I've seen ads where the woman does not necessarily have to be there, but she's there. And then is it, supposedly, do you think that women are being commodified? What is your opinion on this?
Yes, there's a lot of talk going around. In fact, not today, but for a very long time, about use of women, portrayal of women in advertising. Whenever people talk about this particular subject, one example a lot of people give is that when there is a tire for trucks, and you are showing a girl, scantily clad girl, selling a tire. How sensible is that? You know, One example, a lot of people, there used to be something like calendars, right? But there was a logic behind that. I mean, let's not kind of be judgmental about how right it is ethically or morally, whatever, but there's a logic behind using scantily clad women in selling truck tires. The idea was that, those truck drivers, they move around away from home for a very long time. And once they stop somewhere, and go for their khana and all this, dhaba and all this sort of thing, and they're kind of devoid of a lot of pleasures of life, little pleasures of life, joys of life. And if something like this give them, because a lot of those advertisement like posters have been put up there, and they see those, they're exposed to this kind of an ad, they feel good about it. you know I mean, sometimes you feel like, obviously when you say like this, it's really like it's like making a woman a commodity, like object of pleasure. It's wrong, obviously. Anyone would say wrong. But as long as, sometimes it's also thought that as long as it works without hurting anyone, there is no harm about it. This is what it's saying. But that's one part of the whole story. I'm just giving you, because this is off-coded thing. Talking about the portrayal of women, I think we've come a long way from what it used to be earlier. Earlier, as far as my knowledge goes, I have studied some advertising campaign, old campaigns, and after that, use of women. There has been a lot of sexist kind of attitude towards women. A lot of like looking down upon women as kind of a second-grade citizen, or stereotypical kind of a role that women play in advertising. There are a lot of roles you see in women playing in advertising. They're very stereotypical, like a housewife, or she's very sweet, or she's sacrificing, or sort of thing. And these have been done and dusted. But today it's entirely different. In fact, for a very long time, if you observe advertising campaigns in India and abroad, sometimes we're all exposed to ads. We see there is a very level playing field between man and woman, and we're now playing very stronger roles, across categories, product categories, services, and she has her own say, in like that. It only happens because in advertising profession, earlier there were very less women who were there. Today, there are a lot of women who are there. The ham of advertising agency in advertising, marketing, communication. A lot of women in the Indian advertising scenario, if I can tell you, right from Tara Sinha, which used to be a stalwart of Indian advertising, to Elsie Nonji, to our own Bobita Burua. She's from Assam. She's the heading one huge advertising network. She's in Delhi. Then Preeti Vyas. A lot of ladies who are doing so fantastic in advertising their position. And a lot of women are part of the whole advertising workforce. And brand owners have realized that, as long, if we have to cut a niche for ourselves, we have to place ourselves well in the society. We need to be correct in terms of gender bias. We don't have to be gender with gender equality, and we have to give due to the kind of a due respect and due place to man and woman, whatever. So today it's not like women and men. It's like if there is a man, and advertising, let me tell you, works both ways. Advertising is kind of also a reflection of the society. What exactly is going on in society? It's a reflection of that, the changing society. Because you will see the ads which are there 10 or 20 years ago are much different today. So it's actually one way it reflects the ongoing changes and evolutionary changes in society, and on the other hand, it also impacts society. Because brands create the impact, how we behave, how you dress up, fashion changes. So, and a lot of the way we behave as a consumer also changes. So advertising does both. One way it takes the slice of life things from life shows through advertising campaigns and communication. The other way, when it does that, interestingly enough, it creates newer imageries and newer experiences for people, and then the people get motivated by it, and there is a change again. So I think in use of women, it's not like what it used to be earlier. Any brand today, like there are a lot of times that people say that it's a man's product. Why are you using women? See, I mean, it's the perspective how you look at it. If you're selling a man's fragrance, for example, body, today a lot of uh, deodorants, for example, are selling on the plank that if you spray it, you smell great, and there'll be a lot of women queuing up to it. Now, if one brand does it well creatively, brand B can do it well. If the third brand tries to do that, it will fall flat because people are already exposed to that. They have to come up with a new idea, and that's what you have to do, right? So it's not stereotypical kind of a thing. It's the way you look at it. But any brand who is kind of shows women in poor light are going to really suffer for that in the long run in the market. That's what I'm quite sure of that. Absolutely.
As you speak, I am thinking of this book that I read I think it's a month back that I completed this book, and it's titled Why She Buys. And
Okay.
I don't know whether, Indian advertisements are doing that or not, but then, the ones abroad are giving a lot of importance to women and, the products that they come to buy, because it's the woman who's actually deciding a lot of things.
True.
She goes to buy a car, she does the life insurance and all those kind of the medical aid and everything. She's the one who's the decision maker. So as there abroad, they are kind of concentrating more on how to woo the woman. Here, I don't know whether we are doing the same thing, but then that book is very interesting. Why She Buys. I think I certainly remember.
It is. Absolutely, absolutely. It is being done. We talked about the controversy and stereotypical portrayal of women, the last question that you
Yes.
asked. Let me tell you about the use of women because they are the decision makers. And it also happens the man, when he loves his wife, he also wants to give her something. He wants to please her. So this is a very factual truth. So when a brand shows itself like there is the woman who's taken the decision and the man likes it and they're going for it, and finally it's a good decision she took. It's proven that she's taken a very good decision because you've done it right. And then because this is what is happening. And why women? Pester power. Children are used a lot across categories in advertising, and it's not for nothing. There is a reason behind it, because children, they're quite knowledgeable today. They have a huge say in purchase, and they do that. But ultimately, is the man most of the time. Whoever is the sort of earning member, for a lot of times the man who goes out and finally buys it. But the man does discuss things with the family. He does discuss about it, and this is normally shown. And the product lab for the women's product, obviously, man is not going to have a say in the women's product. Women will buy anyway. And when the men's, for example, there are women. A lot of women are probably having a say in buying a men's shirt, for example. So it happens like this. So say, for example, there is Bihu or any festival coming up. The man and the wife, the family go to the market. Normally, men by habit, what they do, they don't indulge so much in kind of a shopping, spree. They just sit there, or one or two, oh yeah, ठीक है इसको ले लो यार, ठीक है बढ़िया. But the women, they normally go on, rampaging the whole showroom and kind of doing the bargaining thing and all this, and the huge say. So people know that, advertisers know that, brands know it, and advertising agencies know it. So when they create communication pieces, they know who are the people you have to target. But again, if it makes sense, it's good. Otherwise, it's not good.
Okay. So Anis, for the sake of the young viewers who are watching you right now, I have a question which might help them. What are the career options in advertising, and what would you suggest for the young, your viewers who are watching you right
now? I think advertising is a wonderful, wonderful industry to be in. Not because I have spent my time in advertising, I'm saying this, but it's, people who have got certain creative bent of mind, and who love to deal with various things of life, love things like, it's not like, for example, if you're a banker, for example, day in and day out, you're going to talk about money, finance, and all this sort of a thing. If you work in a hospital, for example, you'll deal with patients, and it's all about health and healthcare. Like this. But when you are in advertising, One moment you are working on a fashion brand, for example, and the other moment you're working on a hospital, for example, and then you will be taking care of an e-commerce brand, for example, or it can be anything. It can be NGO, for example. So there lies the whole fun of it. And talking about advertising as a career, uh, now I won't say much about this part of the world because we are yet to grow far. We haven't yet grown as much as we should have by now. The northeastern part of the country I'm talking about. But if you go to a place like Bombay or probably Mumbai or probably Delhi or Bangalore, even Kolkata nearby, it's a very thriving industry. There is a change in advertising whole kind of advertising scenario, the ecosystem. The other traditional advertising is giving way to a lot of digital advertising today. That's another story. But uh, there is scope for you to grow and scope for you to really have fun while you work, and you don't feel like working. Advertising is one feel if you really enjoy being in that kind of a scenario, you don't feel like working every day. You're like, and it's like you are being paid for what you love to do. It's like that. And it's not just creative advertising. There are people, different kind of, like if you are a business graduate, for example, if you're an MBA, for example, you can always go and join the client servicing department or account management department, where you'll be handling the brand, dealing with the client. And then if you are a sort of a good writer, now in advertising, when you talk about a copywriter, for example, it's not like a typical writer who can write reams of stories or lovely words and stories like that. Here you have to be a great salesperson in writing when you are a copywriter, because you have to sell ideas. So you have to know in a very concise form how effectively you are writing, how compelling your stories that you are building, how correctly you're saying, and you have to speak and write people's language, what normally people. You don't sometimes have to be grammatically or dictionary correct, but if you're writing, if your words actually creates a kind of a resonance with the people you are targeting, it's a very effective thing, right? And there is then there are a huge scope for designers, graphic designers. Then today, because of the digital onslaught, huge opportunity for people who are good in coding, algorithms, and the software people like that. So the opportunities are huge. One would, but then again, it's a very challenging career. It's very demanding in terms of work hours. So if one is ready, I think one should go for it. Definitely.
I'm sure whoever's listening to you is going to be benefited by your answer.
Sure.
And like you said, even though it's a tough to go into an advertisement career, but I think that with the challenges come the rewards. So I'm sure they'll be rewarded with, and who better than you? You've such a fantastic career. When you're saying that about you said it in the beginning, and so I'm sure they will be inspired by you. They will be totally influenced by you. You are the influencer today. So yes, the other thing that you have been mentioning a lot about in this entire half an hour that we've been talking, you've been speaking a lot about traditional advertisement and digital advertisement. Now you have to tell us what is the relevance of these two.
See, traditional advertising, when we say it consists of normally, traditionally, what we know of like print advertisement, advertisements that we see in newspaper or magazines, these are called print ads. Then television, we see a lot of ads on television. Then the hoardings outside, which is called OOH, out of home media, hoardings and a lot of kiosks on the road. So all these, and then radio is there. So all these actually are composed of what we call traditional advertising, which has been run for years. Today, what's happening is that because of the emergence and the onslaught of mobile phone, almost everyone's got a mobile phone in hand, and you've got smartphones in hand. So basically, this is one screen which you're exposed to most of the time throughout the day. So this gives an opportunity for a lot of brands to be there for you to see, right? So and this is wherever when brand uses platforms to reach you, through your mobile or through your computer, this is called digital advertising. And digital advertising composes of, started off with email marketing, when people used to send emails, then reciprocate response. And then of course, there are a lot of, today you've got a lot of things in digital advertising. You've got the YouTube videos, there's a video, YouTube is YouTube analytics. So you can put your ads on YouTube. You can sort of use social media and advertising medium like WhatsApp or Facebook or like LinkedIn, for Twitter, for example. These are all advertising medium. Then influencer marketing, then blogging, for example. You're aware of that. So all these actually constitute digital advertising. Now the question is that a lot of people are almost sort of glamorizing digital advertising to the extent that they kind of creating the death knell for traditional advertising, which is not. Surprisingly for them who say that traditional advertising is dead, let me tell you that in India, at least, still, out of these 75,000, 80,000 crore industry that I talked about, almost 42% still owned by the print medium, print advertising, and then about 39-40% by television ads. About 10 to 11% of, say, maximum 12% by digital advertising, and rest by radio and all this sort of thing. So still, traditional advertising has its own say, and it has its own advantages also. To start with, traditional advertising has a lot of scope for the brand to have a lot of long-term brand salience. Like when you see a newspaper ad, you have all the time to see it one, and probably you can see it again sometime later, or in the magazine also. So and not many people are still exposed to the mobile. They don't still have that digital platforms. So it depends what exactly is your brand, what is your market, geographical market, who are the people you are targeting. If you're selling a product, marketing a product, so based on that, you have to create your own media plan. So in that media plan, digital might be part of it or might not be part of it. Or you might say that, okay, my target is like in rural India, and my target is like this. They're not exposed to the digital platform, so I'll only go for traditional. That's also fine, fantastic, no problem. So it's not about digital versus kind of traditional, but it's about being a judicious mix of both. In one hand, if traditional media or traditional advertising is very mass oriented, digital is very target oriented, very one-to-one. On the other hand, traditional advertising is normally not that measurable. You advertising, probably don't know how much I've spent and how much I've gained out of that. But there is a great way to know because of this analytics and all these things, how many people are exposed to your ad, like this and all this, how many people have liked your ad on digital platform. So that's how it makes digital advertising more measurable sort of a thing. All said and done, I think there has to be a very judicious mix of both. It cannot be like digital and kind of a tradition like that. Yeah.
Okay. There has to be a balance. There has to be a balance.
There has to be a balance. Keeping in mind the brand you are talking about, the brand you are advertising or communicating, and the people who are there, because ultimately the brand has to create wonderful touch points for the consumer, and you have to understand which are those touch points where my target audience is exposed to, right? If they only move around the city, if they watch television at night, if they read the newspaper in the morning, if they listen to the radio, so let me be there, right?
Yeah.
So let me be there. So it works for you. So it depends on that. I mean, it has to be very, very realistic and very pragmatic in terms of media planning. Tina, because I know that we'll be talking about advertising. I thought let me also share one thing about advertising, which probably are normally people will be able to relate to. A lot of slogans, advertised slogans have been very popular. And why slogans are popular, because I can't help saying this, because how advertising actually works. Unless you create a phrase, unless you create a condensed something, maybe for visual appeal or for your ears, people are not going to remember it for long.
Okay.
If I tell you some of the very well-known taglines, for example, Nike says, "Just do it." It's a very famous tagline, "Just do it," Nike. There's a very interesting story how just do it. Let me not talk about that, but Nike is a sports brand, and why they're saying "Just do it." And when they show they're showing a lot of other things rather than only sports, a lot of other things, and they end up saying, "Just do it." It's Nike's philosophy is that don't wait. If you think it should be done, just do it. So that makes the brand, a winner. Always like a winner, and it's like a very active kind of a brand. And when you associate yourself with Nike, it's like that. So in India, if you traditionally look at the age-old, very successful campaigns in Indian brands, when we started watching television in the 80s, 82, 83, Hamara Bajaj, remember Bajaj scooter? There was a
Yes.
one very long-running campaign, Hamara Bajaj, hugely successful, it created huge impact, Hamara Bajaj. And the kind of ads we'll still remember, Buland Bharat ki Buland Tasveer,
Yes. Yes.
Hamara Bajaj. So, it created a very emotional connect with the audience. And they say that, we are Indians and this is India. And ye Hamara Bajaj hai. It is a solution for every problem that we have, transportation from here to there. And it carries everything. So, and then you talk about so many other brands. I mean, like, uh, uh, Cadbury, for example. This is one of my favorite brands, Cadbury. Cadbury, I'll give you how advertising, how shapes and molds people opinion and behavior. Cadbury chocolate used to be very children product, child-based product. Every child would love to have chocolate. And adults, no matter how much they would love to have chocolate, they kind of feel shy of saying that, give some chocolate because, it's like, it's not for me. I mean, I can't have chocolate in public. If I have it, I'll have it in private. So, Cadbury's realized at one point of time that our sales are kind of a sagging, it's not growing that much because not many children are having chocolate and there are competition also, right? So they decided, why not let's also kind of include adults into the fold, consumer fold. And that's how the whole campaign started. It was done by Ogilvy and Mather India. Do you remember that ad when the girl who was watching from a cricket match, uh, her boyfriend was batting and then he make hits six and the team wins and she just runs to the ground and dances joyously and kuch khas hai zindagi mein, kuch khas hai
Yes.
zindagi
Yes.
mein. you know and that was one
It was a
campaign which
beautiful
actually,
act.
absolutely, it was such a love campaign. There was one campaign which changed the fate of Cadbury in India. A lot of adults then, gleefully started enjoying chocolate in public. They didn't feel bad that I'm having chocolate. It changes the behavior. So, taglines, lines, when you create a sort of a image. And in that particular tagline, everything is there included and people remember it. The moment because it gets well entrenched in the minds of the consumer, the moment they remember it, they get all these associations of the brand, right? And if I give it kind of, there are a lot of brands like it, I can go on and on and on. I mean, uh, I just wrote few, and recently Surf Daag Achhe. I mean, this is again one of the more love campaigns. Daag Achhe, there's a little boy who goes and, helps his friend, and then he, just, splashes in the mud and, gets all his sort of garments and dirty, and then mother says, Daag Achhe, don't worry, because you've done a good thing. So, what happens is that there is something goodness, essentially something really good about human behavior that gets associated with the brand and people start liking it. Similarly, last year, one of the most successful campaign across the world was done by Procter & Gamble. And it was for their this Ariel Matic brand, Ariel, the detergent powder. So Ariel Matic is a brand for the washing machine. So the tagline is that share the load. Ariel Matic, the campaign was share the load campaign. It says that, I'll come back to that portrayal of women and the equality of it. It says that why always women have to do this washing? Why can't men do that? Why can't someone else also in the household do that? And across the world, it's become so universally appealing. People started looking at this and there was a research done. It was found that a lot of people after this campaign broke out, they lovingly did all those things. They lovingly did wash their clothes and all this. So share the load. It's a wonderful message. Anyone would love that. So this is what brands need to do. You have to ideate first with the kind of message you're going to send. Then you have to brand that messaging. That's very important. How you brand that message? By a wonderfully created tagline, slogan. In political sphere, I think I can't help sharing with you because you love that. In India, if you remember, right from I think I'll just wind up by saying this. Garibi Hatao by Indira Gandhi started the Garibi Hatao. Do you remember in 1971 election? And there was one line, Garibi Hatao, two words that stripped the whole election campaign in favor of Congress. Congress came to
Yes.
power, and interestingly, in 1977, Jayaprakash Narayan led party, they started a campaign. They said, Indira Hatao, Desh Bachao. You know, and it so happened, I'm not
Yes,
saying
I
because
remember.
of this campaign, Indira Hatao, first it was Garibi Hatao, and that gave success to Congress. And in the 1977 election, Jayaprakash Narayan said, Indira Hatao, Desh Bachao, and Congress lost that election. You know, and then you have so many things like, Hum Do, Hamare Do, like, family planning campaign, very well run, long run campaign
Yes.
like that, you know. Then Apki Bari, Atal Bihari, when Atal Bihari Vajpayee came to the power, BJP came to the power. And until recently, BJP, when in 2014, Apki Bar Modi Sarkar, the BJP came. So,
Yes.
all these political parties, and a lot of this is used to success, huge success. Why I'm giving this political kind of examples, party election is example, because I think election, the 5 years, the Lok Sabha election every 5 years probably is the biggest event in India, and I'd say it's almost the Olympics of events in India, every 5 years. So you need to engage your consumer. For every political party, the people that you are targeting, because today they're like consumers. Political parties operate and they run campaigns like any other consumer-oriented companies. So that's how they gain success. Now, this is another story. I mean, how truthful you are, whatever you're saying, whether you stick to that, that's another story. But, it really sweeps people off their feet, when you say that. So we can go on and on. I mean, this is so interesting thing, but I'd like to put a stop to that. Yeah.
Seriously, Anis, the way you are, capturing all these stories for our viewers and for me also, I think we could just go on listening to you for another, 5-6 hours. We could just, and like I said at the beginning, you're a fantastic speaker, and I'm sure
Absolutely.
the viewers are going
Thank
to
you so much.
agree with me that he is a fantastic speaker, fantastic storyteller, and we have had such a fantastic evening. But I have a couple of more questions to ask.
Sure.
I have one question which says, what's the scenario of Guwahati vis-a-vis the Northeast region?
As far as advertising is concerned, right?
Yes, as far as advertising is concerned.
See, I think when you talk of advertising as an industry, there are 4 pillars of it. First pillar is the advertisers, what we call clients, the advertising agency, what we say clients, the people who advertise, brand owners. Second are the people who create those advertising and disseminate the messaging, they release those ads in different media platforms, the advertising agency people. So there can be a creative agency who create those ads, so there can be a media releasing agency, there can be an outdoor agency who have got their hoardings or outdoor spaces and they sell them to clients. This is the second category, second pillar. The third is the media, which actually is the media vehicle, is a vehicle through which you send your messaging to people. And the fourth, of course, are the people, the consumer, the target audience, who are the recipients of the messaging, of the whole advertising. What's happening here in northeastern part of the country, as far as my understanding and my experience is concerned, because I've been here after coming back from Delhi for the last 16, 17 years, the two segments need to evolve fast if the whole industry has to grow. The advertisers and the advertising service providers. The advertisers need to understand that if I have to advertise, advertising doesn't happen in kind of isolation. I need to create a brand, and for brand building, advertising is very, very critical. It's almost sacrosanct. I should do it very cost effectively and very strategically, then very creatively. They need to understand that. They also need to understand that if I have to build a brand, I need to invest money into that. Okay. And they also need to kind of rely on the talents that we have here. A lot of times it seems that they think we do not have the right talent over this part of the country, and they'll go to Calcutta or Delhi or other places. Now the problem is that someone coming from outside probably have very little idea about the cultural nuances of the consumer, how consumer behave, because every region has its own identity, own behavioral differences. People behave differently. There are cultural differences. There are as a consumer, there are demographic differences. So people probably who are here are in a better place to understand that. So that also they need to understand. Okay. So I think from client side, they should also start investing more money into brand building, and they should start relying on the local advertising agencies that we have here, the people who are offering the services. And that will help, growth of the advertising agencies. On the other hand, the second category or second kind of category of people who need to improvise and improve a lot are the we people. We are the advertising agencies and creative agencies and people who are giving, like, also like event management people and PR agencies also, promotional agencies. I think we also need to up the ante a bit in terms of the uh, creative inputs that we offer to our clients, in terms of the research that we do, in terms of the understanding of the brands. Today not much of talk is going on around brand today in Guwahati or this part of the country. Not much of talk is going on as far as commercial creativity is concerned. You'll hear people talking about poetry or story or this or like that. A lot of people go gaga over it, but not many people are talking about how you can create a wonderful piece of communication with lot of controls. You need to have, when you have targets, when you're working under a binding, and then how you create that. We don't have that kind of atmosphere. Neither do we have training facilities for young talents to tell them and train them and groom them to become, great writers and great designers. Recently I wrote one small piece on Facebook and in other social media thing about the difference between art and design. Still a lot of people that don't know the difference between art and design. So we need more designers or solution providers. So advertising industry as a whole need to really improve our we need to improve our quality and show it to clients. And not everything is about money. A lot of times it also means that clients, they want good services, and they will float a kind of a tender where they will require sort of, like you have to be of you have to have a billing of this lakhs or crore, like that. And so many people who are probably are very good as a team to give you a grand service, they probably fail to live up to your expectation. And in return, what happens is that you lose out a great team to service your. So this is one thing. And I think future is good, provided we work towards it. There are more understanding clients over here, and agencies need to be on our feet, and we need to challenge ourselves to do better, to be better in terms of our services. So I think that's how it will grow, the advertising
I
industry.
I think when you're saying all this, it kinds of it's very I can see a very good prospect for advertisement in Guwahati, in Assam and the Northeast region. But then I think all of you need to get together. If you need to work
Absolutely
together, I think you need to hold hands, because
true.
all of you who you are there, and there are so many others that I
Absolutely, absolutely.
know.
We
And
have
all
got
of you
wonderful,
together
yeah.
will really some good things.
I can tell you, we have got wonderful people in this industry. In fact, 5 years ago, we formed the advertising club Guwahati, and I'm
Okay.
the vice president of the club now. In fact, we've got great guys. I mean, who are doing wonderful business wise. Our colleagues in the industry, and we did some good work also, like to make people aware of so many social issues. We've done that, but we need to do much more as an industry body. We need to do much more cohesively together. We should sit down and raise issues probably where we're lacking, rather than, because if I'm happy doing my own business and earning certain amount of money or billing some XYZ, all are doing, and it won't actually help us grow. We need to sit together, do much more. There are talents. There are a lot of young guys I see around, who are good writers, good designers, in fact, and on digital platforms, so they're good solution providers. But probably what you need more today are great thinkers, lateral thinkers, because advertising is not just about someone writing nice words and good copy and design. It's about great thinkers, how you can think large, think big, and think brand wise, and then create strategies, think creatively, create a concept, and then see to it that everything is run through that in a particular idea. So I think that thing is probably lacking here. We need more and more creative leaders, if I can say, in this part of the country for the sector to grow. Yeah.
I hope, Anis, all the young people are hearing you out, and I hope they kind of, get to you and your organization, so that you can help these young people. You can help
Absolutely.
them to grow, because that is because if you are not going to pull them up, I mean, the seniors, the veterans, the experts, if you're not going to pull them up, they are going to be there. They are just not going to get a chance to work and do good for the
Correct.
state and the Northeast. So I
Correct.
have one very important question, which has been there in my head for many years, and for, I mean, at least still this government has been here. So, I mean, Wassam Assam, what is your take on this? What do you think of this ad? I'm seriously, I seriously, let me be very pointed about it, and let me put this on record. I am a little biased about it. So I want your take on this.
Yes, I'm happy you asked that question because it might turn out to be a bit controversial, but I don't care. I mean, we should talk about being Assamese, being from Assam. I think we have a right to talk about the campaign, right? And we'll talk about we'll talk something which is good for our state, right? Brand Assam.
Yeah, absolutely.
My own take on this whole campaign is that it's very difficult to market a destination. It's not an easy job to market a destination. When you're trying to say that I'm trying to sell Assam as a tourist spot, first you need to do a lot of research work, a lot of surveys. I don't think that has been done, number one. Then you need to find out what are those elements that I can really talk about, which will really make Assam really different and stand out. Because a lot of other states are also promoting themselves. Even if we talk about it as a tourist spot, Kerala has its own God's own country tag being attached to it, and we all know what Kerala is famous for: backwater, massage, Ayurveda, all the, we all go there. It's very well established, well entrenched. In fact, in the Incredible India campaign, Kerala has got a very huge space, and rightly so. And I'll tell you, interestingly, there was a long back, there was a campaign done by Goa for a short while, very interestingly done. The tagline was, if Kerala is God's own country, where does God go to for holiday? The God goes to Goa. So they're very, it's a very, very cheeky kind of an ad. But because everyone knows Goa, what Goa is known for, beaches and all these holiday mode. But they hammered on it in a very interesting manner and probably get it even more well entrenched. So coming back to Awesome Assam campaign. First of all, you need to understand what traditionally people have known about Assam. Am I going to talk about that only? Or something really, really new that people probably didn't know about it? Or even if it is all the things that why Assam is famous for, the wildlife, the rhino, all those, whatever comes to mind in terms of tourist sport is concerned. Are you going to talk about them again, or are you talking about very interestingly? What is the kind of imageries? What is the kind of positioning I have? It's very, I think, Awesome Assam, the tagline which was written, I think it's more written more in a haste and in a self kind of a glory rather than out of lot of research work and strategic thinking. Because, sometimes we fall in love with the very idea of alliteration, Awesome Assam, AA. We love that, alliteration. So, but we have to find a lot of strong meanings. Why Assam is awesome? Have we tried to showcase why we are awesome? I mean, when we say that Awesome Assam, you should have always kind of showcased probably 5, 6, 7 different campaigns, different video, part of a campaign. This is one thing, that's why you're awesome. This is another, that's why you're awesome. Something like that. And, there again, I mean, there was a huge uproar about the kind of money government spend in the whole campaign. And that also shows that people are quite skeptic about the whole idea, because you did not create the atmosphere where people were ready. First of all, that was to be done. The government should have done that. That we need to promote Assam because of these reasons, and you do not promote a destination just for tourists. Well, you had a wonderful opportunity to promote Assam as a place where you evoke a lot of emotional connect with people who probably had a lot of misgivings, a lot of misconception about the place. Have you addressed those issues? No. People in Delhi, people outside think a lot about Northeast, a lot about Assam, which are absolutely wrong, far from truth. Have you addressed those things? There are a lot of myths going around. Have you addressed those myths? Saying that no, this is the reality, this is the myth. We could have done that, And I am not sure about using a brand ambassador like Priyanka Chopra as a brand ambassador. I think rather than spending that money, we could have,
yes.
had we been more creative, had we been more strategically correct, more intensely thought, had it been more intensely thought out, kind of a campaign, we could have utilized that money, I will be more, even much more in a better way. I'm not saying using Priyanka was a bad decision, but probably not now. When we have a very limited budget and a huge chunk of that money goes to the brand ambassador, I don't think it was a good idea. It's like almost like, you're making a huge film, and almost 70% of the whole budget goes to the hero, and then the film flops, rather than having a good idea about the whole story of the film. So I think we lacked a very strong story, because today it's all about what is your story about the brand. We need to create very compelling, strong story about brand Assam. And when I sometimes sit alone and think, I myself get some really ideas going in my mind. But probably I think in times to come, some of us who are locally here available, who are providing advertising and creative services, will have a chance to present their ideas. In fact, I myself gave about 5 years ago, few ideas about how Assam should be positioned after a lot of thought process. But I don't know, I mean, where have all those gone? But I think we need to have a relook on that. And we need to promote Assam, not just as a tourist destination, but as a destination which attracts business people, investors, people to tour Assam. Even the food that we take, traditionally Assamese food, how much have we been able to market them outside? You all take Chinese food. You all love South Indian food as a breakfast, idli. We all love that. We all like Punjabi food, chole bhature and all this. But have we ever tried to, Assamese delicacies? If you ask me honestly, I think in terms of delicacies, sweet, I don't find a match across the country. When you talk about pita, variety of pitas are absolutely mouth-watering delicacy. Have we ever tried to market them? Have they been part of the whole platter when you start communicating our own place? Have we tried to communicate or market our people, who we are, how we think, how we behave? Because you've got the huge soft quality advantage. Assamese people have got a huge soft quality advantage. You've got a soft, like, what do you call the hard skills, the soft skills. We have got the soft skills going for us. Have we tried to sell those outside? And all this should be part of the overall branding exercise and the campaign, which I think probably was not done. And that's why I think money probably was not channelized the way it probably should have been. I'm sure it should be done later.
Wonderful, wonderful. The way you've spoken, I hope the government actually watches this video and then they actually call you for your ideas. The kind of ideas you have,
I hope so.
I'm sure they're over the moon. And the 4 years ago, if you've presented and you don't know where it is now, I think it's time to present again and tell them that you're very passionate about Assam and this is how it should be presented. Wonderful talking to you.
We have gone long. I think it's really dragged long. I just want to give you one example because I just can't help sharing with you. We talk about destination marketing. Recently in Australia is a country around the world everyone knows. It's just a hugely popular country. Everyone would love to go. I would love to go to Australia one day, watch a match in Melbourne Cricket Ground, or probably watch the Australian Open tennis there. Australia always did a lot of successful campaigns, but recently they did a campaign across the world. What they did, I'll just share with you how the agency which was handling that campaign, which is Droga 5, one of the really cutting edge creative agencies across the world today. They thought, Australia, what Australia has to offer to the world. Australia has got beaches, the sea line, the ocean, then you've got the wildlife. Australia's got food, which is so wonderful to, savour. Australia's got sports, all this. And then say, it's a wonderful thing. And then they realize a lot of other countries have them too. So how you create something unique about Australia? And then someone said, what about the Australian himself or herself? Because the Australian attitude, how an Australian thing is very aggressive, very merry-go-lucky, very in-your-face kind of a guy. Hey, buddy, why, mate? What's up? It's kind of a guy. In cricket, we know how they bash up the opponents, and so how aggressive they are. So there is a very interesting kind of an aspect of how the Australian thing. So that's what they promoted through a campaign of 3-4 ads. I've seen the ads, it's just absolutely mind-blowing. So impressive. And once you finish looking at those campaigns, the ads, you really feel like going to Australia and be there. So I think we need to work those things out. There can be wonders that we have. We need to find them. Right. Thank you so much. I really took a lot of time.
Wow. Amazing, amazing. I must say that, we need to actually sit another time because the kind of the knowledge that you have on advertisement, advertising, I think the young people, especially, I'm more interested in putting across your message to the young people because older people already know what you're talking about, or probably they don't. But then the young people need to know you, they need to connect with you, they need to hold hands with you, and you need to pull them up because this is what we are looking at. The young people should be pulled up so that
whoever
Yes.
wishes to come to me, I'm always there.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. I hope the young
Absolutely.
people
Why not?
please, please come to Mr. Anisul Hoque and his team. And he's got this now. He's the vice president of the organization. What did you say the name was? Yes. Okay.
The Advertising Club Guwahati. Yeah.
The Advertising Club of Guwahati. He's the vice president, so you know where to reach him. And I'm sure all of you must have really enjoyed, because I am going home. I'm home, but then my takeaway from this particular interview today is that I am filled with the knowledge of advertisement. All those things that I did not know, I've come to know through Mr. Anisul Hoque. Thank you so much for coming to my show. This is Conversation. And I'm going to invite you back again, Mr. Anis. I'm going to
Absolutely.
invite you back.
Any day. Wonderful talking to you, and thank you so much for having me on your show. I watched all your preceding shows. Absolutely wonderful. I think you should keep doing that. Great communicator you are. I've always put you in high esteem as far as communicator is concerned. You write well, speak well. People should learn a lot from you. And
thank
great
you.
to be in your show.
But I one last line for everybody. Something that you need to tell everybody. I want this last line from you.
Yeah, I think people should start looking at advertising, looking at communication rather, not just advertising, as a very important aspect of life. I'll tell you, a lot of good things in this world has happened because of right communication. And a lot of bad things, unfortunate things have happened because of lack of communication and because of bad communication. So communication is very, very important. It's in fact so key to success in many, many fields, our daily life, our business, everything. So we need to be able to be great communicator. We should listen to people well. We should empathize with people well and enjoy life. And social media, a lot of people brush social media like, but with single brush, say the social media, no, it's a wonderful place. Facebook, for example, is what you make of it. There's nothing like Facebook, like this is Facebook, Facebook is what you make of it. Twitter is what you make of it. It is a wonderful place to get news from. Get it. If you want to, disseminate information, positivity around, happiness around, you can do it. Why not? Why you always have to poke your nose into something? If there is something you have to say something, say it. If you have to criticize, say it. But I think it's a lot of empathy, a lot of love and care. I think we can do a lot of things, good things. So yes, I think let's give. And I think we should. And finally, I should end by saying that despite the onslaught of this digital things across us every day, I think let us have digital acumen and skill set, about using and technology and everything at the fore, but let's remain human at the core, right? That's what I can say. Fine.
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
totally
Thank you,
indebted to
Tina.
you. Thank you. Have a
Thank
great
you so much.
night. Thank you. Good night.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Same. Good night. Good night. Good night to everyone.